Hey everyone, we're looking at a job posting here at Nintendo of America, the career area, and you can go through this and find their benefits and perks and all that stuff if that's what you're interested in. But they're hiring a senior engineer for the graphics team. Now this is important to know because there is a requirement for this position for a technology that Switch does not currently employ on the current base model, Tegra X1, and that is because the Tegra X1 is not capable of this technology. This could potentially be a hint, some sort of suggestion towards the Switch Pro or Switch Mini or some new, more powerful system, because this technology is something that makes the platform, quote unquote, more powerful. So when you go down to the summary of requirements is really what we're going to focus on. It talks about OpenGL, DirectX programming expertise required, outstanding knowledge of the GPU hardware, software architecture, all this great stuff, C, C++, blah, blah, blah. As you go down the list, you'll notice it says experience with parallel and asynchronous processing. This is important because while the Tegra X1 does support parallel processing, it doesn't support asynchronous processing. That means the current Switch cannot do asynchronous processing. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole technical details behind what asynchronous processing does behind the scenes from a developer standpoint, but what I will note is on the consumer end, it essentially increases performance by 20% of physics. So what happens is, in a game like Breath of the Wild, where there's a massive physics engine and all that stuff, they could actually increase the frame rate of that game by 20%, just having asynchronous processing enabled. And again, remember, the Tegra X1, the current Nintendo Switch, cannot support it because asynchronous processing is not available on that chipset. So they would need to make a custom chipset, they would need to customize that chipset, or release an updated chipset that does support asynchronous processing. And for them to hire a senior engineer for the graphics team that needs to have experience with asynchronous processing tells you that the next Switch, whatever it is going to have asynchronous processing. This should mean, in general, that most of us consumers with asynchronous processing on should see about a 20% increase in performance on our games. That gives you a baseline for what you should expect for a Nintendo Switch Pro or a Nintendo Switch Mini in terms of increased performance over the current Switch. And 20% increase in performance, and especially when it comes to frame rates, is huge. So yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? I think so. And again, we don't know what architecture the next Switch is going to use. We don't know, if it's going to go with what the original Tegra X2 was going to be before it was repurposed for use in smart cars. We don't know if it's just going to be a souped up X1, if they're going to customize the X1 and maybe allow asynchronous processing on it. Honestly, we don't know what they're going to do. But what we do know is this is the first indication we have had based on a job posting from Nintendo on what feature set is going to be available in a new Switch product that isn't available in the current. Now, you might try to argue, of course, that this doesn't mean anything. Asynchronous processing could just be applied to a different device Nintendo's working on. But it should be notable that things like smart devices and stuff generally don't support asynchronous processing. Asynchronous processing is an NVIDIA specific thing. So, yeah, I honestly think that that's not the case because NVIDIA has not made headway into smartphones and devices. So very clearly this applies to some sort of Switch or something like that. If you look at the description of duties, it even says we are looking for a graphics software engineer to work on Nintendo's proprietary graphics drivers and software for Nintendo gaming platforms. That's important to note because Nintendo gaming platforms obviously refers to platforms that are Nintendo's, and the Switch would be Nintendo's platform. Nintendo Technology Development Inc. is a technology research and development subsidiary responsible for hardware design and driver development for Nintendo gaming systems. So again, more and more, this is a position for Nintendo Switch, and asynchronous processing is huge. I gotta say that this is exciting news because it's the first tidbit we have been able to, a little morsel, been able to find about what this Switch might be. We're looking at least 20% increase in processing on physics, and that is huge. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Reveljans from Nintendo Prime. Be sure to enter our Nintendo Switch Super Smash Bros. Ultimate giveaway through the Gleam.io link down in the description, and I will catch all of you guys in the next video. Melody, you need to start.
Yes. Yes.